Hello, my karmically connected friend. Have you ever wondered why you always feel exhausted even when you're not doing heavy physical labor? It's because your mind is straining to carry an invisible rock called control. We often think that worrying will keep us safe. But the truth is, anxiety is a prison built out of shadows. It traps you in a future that has never existed and steals the joy of the present moment. Do you ever lie awake all night just worrying about terrible things that might happen tomorrow, only to realize that most of them never come true? If the answer is yes, this video is a signal of peace sent to you. True freedom only arrives the moment you stop trying to control the flow of life. Today, we will explore 7 profound lessons of wisdom from Buddhism, helping you dismantle each bar of that anxiety prison. This is not just theory. These are healing remedies for the soul. Stay until the end of the video, because the 7th lesson will be the most crucial key to unlocking the door to eternal serenity for you. Lesson 1: Fear is a seed. Try to imagine. Your mind is like an incredibly fertile and rich piece of land. That land has a very fair and neutral law of operation. It never judges whether the seed you sow is good or bad. If you sow a rose seed, it will nurture the rose. If you sow a poisonous weed seed, it will diligently work to make that poisonous weed grow. And fear is exactly such a seed. Every time you spend time worrying, obsessing over risks, you are unintentionally watering and fertilizing that seed of fear every day. The law of the mind is clear. What is given attention grows. We often think we are worrying ahead to be safe, but in reality, we are unintentionally creating the very reality we fear the most. Look at real life to see this clearly. For example, at work, if you always carry the seed of fear that you will fail or be fired, that anxiety will drain your creative energy, making you tense, prone to errors, and ultimately, that very attitude leads you to actual failure. Or in a relationship, when you sow the seed of the fear of abandonment, you will act with control, jealousy, and suspicion. It is the suffocation created by the fear, and nothing else, that pushes the person you love away from you. The mind does not distinguish between what you want and what you fear. It only magnifies what you focus on. So how do you stop the mind's garden from being overgrown with the weeds of anxiety? The moment you recognize a fearful thought sprouting in your head, practice this simple yet powerful step immediately. Stop, take a deep breath, and silently tell yourself that you choose not to water this seed anymore. Instead of letting your mind drift into the worst-case scenario, actively sow an opposite seed immediately, the seed of gratitude for something that is good right now. When you stop supplying attention energy, the seed of fear will automatically wither and vanish, restoring peace to the land of your soul. Lesson 2: Strength is surrender. Society often teaches us that strength means holding on tight, controlling, and fighting relentlessly to get what we want. But under the light of Buddhist wisdom, the peak of inner strength lies in the opposite direction. It is surrender, buong-sha. Contemplate this simple yet profoundly deep analogy. You are trying to hold water in your hands. If, for fear of losing the water, you use all your might to clench your hands into a fist, the water will slip through the gaps in your fingers and flow away completely. The harder you clench, the more you hold on to nothing but tension and emptiness. However, if you relax, gently open your palm to receive, the water will settle, still, full, and complete. Life operates exactly like that flow of water. When you try to control loved ones, control the future, or force work outcomes to be exactly as you wish, you are only spiritually exhausting yourself. You are fighting the natural flow. Please do not make the harmful mistake of thinking that surrender means giving up, weakness, or irresponsibility. Absolutely not. Surrender is the expression of great wisdom. It is when you make your best effort to sow good causes in the present, but your mind is completely at ease, unattached, and unforceful about the results in the future. You do your part, and you let the universe do its part. Engrave this truth in your heart. True strength lies not in trying to hold tighter, but in the courage to let go. When you dare to let go of the need to control the flow of life, you do not become weak. On the contrary, you become resilient, gentle, and inclusive like the ocean, ready to welcome and support all the waves of life without fear. Lesson 3: Peace belongs to now. Have you ever realized that anxiety is actually your absence from the present moment? When you worry, your mind is not here. It is busy playing a director, self-producing a horror movie about the future with the darkest possible scripts. You are sitting here, but your soul is lost in catastrophes that have never happened. But try to be awake for once and look directly at reality. Right now, you are sitting, you are breathing, and you are safe. This room is still quiet. Your heart is still beating the rhythm of life. No tiger is chasing you. No disaster is crashing down upon you. All those storms are merely illusions of the mind, while the peace of the present is the only truth. There is a wonderful saying, "The mind can roar like thunder, but the present moment always whispers peace." To help you anchor yourself to that marvelous whisper, let's do a short 10-second breathing exercise right now. Pause all thoughts. Inhale deeply. Feel the cool, refreshing air filling your chest. Exhale slowly. Smile gently and release every invisible burden on your shoulders. Do you see? Peace is not some distant destination you need to run toward. Peace is always present right here. You just have to be willing to return to it. Lesson 4: Imagined fears. The fourth lesson helps us expose the true nature of worrying. Try to observe that our mind, especially as we enter our twilight years, often operates like a novelist specializing in tragic stories. It has a special talent for fabricating the most thrilling and terrifying disaster scenarios, even when the external reality remains perfectly peaceful. Look at our everyday worries to see this clearly. Just a slight, fleeting ache in the back, and the mind immediately whispers, "Oh no, it must be a terminal illness. I'm about to become a burden to my children and grandchildren." Or when you call your child and the phone rings repeatedly without an answer, instead of simply thinking they are busy in a meeting, the mind conjures up all sorts of horrific accidents, making your heart pound and blood pressure rise. We are fighting ghosts created by ourselves. A psychological statistic shows that more than 90% of the terrible things we worry about will never come true. We are wasting our precious later years paying exorbitant interest on debts of suffering we have never even borrowed. To escape this tragic novel, every time the inner storm hits, stop and ask yourself a mantra question. Is this actually happening right before my eyes? Or is it just a thought? If it hasn't happened, it is not real. Gently file it in the fiction drawer and return to reality. Don't let the scripts in your head steal the flavor of the meal you are eating, or the smile of the partner sitting across from you. Live with the truth, not with fear. Lesson 5: Control blocks faith. My dear friend, there is a psychological truth we must face. You cannot simultaneously wish to control everything and desire the peace of faith. Control and faith are two opposite extremes. Like water and fire, they cannot coexist in the same room of the mind. Imagine a severely stressed driver. His hands are gripping the steering wheel so tightly they are white. His eyes are glued to every pothole. His heart is pounding with fear of taking the wrong turn. He cannot enjoy the scenery along the road, nor can he feel the smoothness of the ride. The valuable lesson here is, you cannot both grip the wheel in fear and claim to trust that the road will take you to your destination. When you try to control every tiny detail in life, from how your children must live to how your body is not allowed to be sick, you are sending a negative message to the universe. I do not believe in the flow of life. I do not believe that everything will turn out okay. This very lack of faith is the root of all inner suffering. Buddhism teaches us a wonderful word, duyen, karmic affinity / causality. Everything in life has its own time and reason. A flower will bloom when it has enough sun. A river will reach the sea when it has enough water. You cannot use willpower to force the flower to bloom early, nor can you force the river to flow faster. Instead of trying to bend the flow of life to your will, learn to trust. Trust here is not fatalistic surrender, but the belief that no matter what happens, you already have enough wisdom and inner strength to face it. Release the hands that are tightly gripping the steering wheel of control. When you dare to let go of the need to arrange everything, you truly make room for wonderful and peaceful things to enter your life. Lesson 6: Letting go is growth. The sixth lesson brings an awakening message. Fear shrinks your world, while letting go expands your soul. When anxiety dominates, we tend to contract. We build thick, defensive walls around ourselves to avoid being hurt. We are hesitant about changes, afraid of new things, and cling tightly to old habits even when they no longer bring joy. Be honest with yourself. You are unintentionally shrinking your world without even knowing it. You are imprisoning yourself in a narrow cage of false security. But life is not a stagnant pond. Life is a river flowing to the great ocean. Imagine you are a leaf floating on the stream. The leaf does not try to cling to the bank, nor does it fear encountering a blocking rock. It simply relaxes, navigates through the gaps, and trusts completely that the current will support it forward. The river teaches us the great lesson. Only when we dare to surrender to the current can we reach the vast ocean. To practice this flow, you don't need to do anything grand immediately. Start with one small act of letting go every day. For example, today when you have to wait in line at the supermarket or wait for a traffic light, instead of letting impatience and frustration burn your heart, try letting go of that discomfort. Take a breath and enjoy the rare few minutes of free time. Or in an argument with a loved one, try once to let go of the need to be right. Smile and take a step back to preserve harmony. Each time you let go of a small attachment, you break one brick of the wall of fear, expanding the capacity of your heart to embrace life more fully. Lesson 7: Step aside for life to flow. The paradox of interference. My dear friend, there is a beautiful and great paradox in life that we often spend an entire lifetime realizing. The best things often happen when we stop trying to force them. Imagine you are standing in a garden bathed in golden sunlight. You see a magnificent butterfly with brilliantly colored wings. Your mind, with its inherent habit of control, immediately develops a desire for ownership. You start chasing the butterfly. You run. You swing your hand. You use a net to catch it. But the more you chase, the farther the butterfly flies. The more effort you use, the more frightened the butterfly becomes. Finally, you are exhausted and sweaty, and the butterfly has disappeared behind the trees. In that disappointment and fatigue, you decide to give up. You sit down on a rock, breathe, and observe the garden quietly. You no longer desire, no longer scheme. And precisely in the moment you sit still and peaceful, the butterfly gently flies back and lands on your shoulder. Happiness, peace, and the arrangement of fate are exactly like that butterfly. We often think we are the navigators, the creators, the ones who must intervene to arrange everything for life to be stable. We interfere with our children's journeys, interfere with others' emotions, and interfere with the natural flow of the universe. But the truth is, your anxiety and crude interference are like trying to use your bare hands to stir the surface of a lake, hoping to find the reflection of the moon. The more you stir, the cloudier the water becomes, and the more shattered the image is. The core message I want to convey to you in this final lesson is, when you stop interfering, life begins to flow. The wisdom of the river. To deeply understand the concept of vovi, action without forced effort following nature, look at the journey of a river. The river originates from small streams on high mountains. Its goal is the vast ocean. But do you see any river worrying about which way it should flow tomorrow? Do you see any river stopping to argue with a blocking rock? No. The river completely trusts the gravity of the earth. When it encounters a rock, it does not punch the rock, nor does it try to smash the rock. It gently bends and flows around it. It yields to the terrain. Where the path is flat, it flows smoothly. Where the slope is steep, it transforms into a powerful cascade. It does not judge one section of the river as good and another as bad. It simply flows. And eventually, no matter how winding the path, every river finds its way to the sea. Our life is also a river like that. But our anxiety is like you being the river yet not trusting gravity. You fear you won't flow to the sea, so you try to cling to the riverbank. You try to flow upstream, or you build dams to stop yourself. Step aside does not mean you abandon life and do nothing. That is a harmful misconception. Step aside means you take a step back from your fearful, controlling ego. You stop playing the role of the universe's manager. You transition from the position of the interferer to the position of the observer and the companion. You do your best in your work, but you step aside for the result to determine itself, without worrying about gain or loss. You love your children with all your heart, but you step aside so they can live their own lives, fall down, and grow up, without imposing expectations. You care for your body when sick, take medicine, and rest. But you step aside for the body's self-healing mechanism to operate, without adding the fear of death. Merging into the ocean. When you truly dare to step aside, a miracle will happen. You will feel an infinite lightness, as if a 1,000-pound rock has been lifted from your shoulders and placed on the ground. You realize you are not alone. You realize there is a great current of life, of the universe, of the Tao or whatever name you wish to give it, that is silently supporting you. Imagine the waves on the sea surface. If the wave thinks it is a separate entity, it will be incredibly afraid. It fears strong winds, fears crashing into the shore, and most of all, fears the moment it breaks apart. The wave's entire life will be a series of anxious days. How can I be bigger? How can I exist forever? But if the wave steps aside from that small self and realizes its true nature, oh, I am not just a wave. I am the water. I am the ocean. At that moment, the fear vanishes. The wave can rise, can fall, can dissipate, but the water remains water forever. The wave is at peace within the ocean. We are the same. Anxiety stems from thinking we are separate, weak individuals who must fight the whole world to survive. But when you let go of control, you merge back into the collective flow. You will see that the people who come and go in your life are necessary karmic connections. Failures or successes are all bends in the river meant to take you where you need to go. Practicing trust. So specifically, how do we practice this lesson every day? It is that every time you feel your body tensing up, your mind agitated over a problem that isn't going your way, treat it as a red light signal. That signal says, you are interfering too deeply, you are blocking the flow. At that moment, stop. Take a breath and say to yourself, I permit myself to step aside. Imagine you are moving to the side of the road to make way for an ambulance. Here, you step aside to make way for the wisdom of the universe to pass through. Trust that what you cannot solve with worry, time will solve with patience. What you cannot mend with force, love will mend with gentleness. Just as the sky does not need to strive to be blue, the clouds do not need to strive to float, and your heart does not need to strive to beat. Life is already a perfectly self-operating miracle. Your job is not to fix the world, but to fix your perspective to see to that the world is operating according to its own law. When you are no longer the obstacle, energy will flow through you. You will become more clear-headed, more flexible, and more peaceful. You will no longer be the person rowing upstream with bleeding hands. You will be the one hoisting the sail, welcoming the gentle wind, and letting the boat of life glide lightly on the water. That is the pinnacle of practice. It is not achieving everything, but letting go of the burden of control to enjoy the journey. Let life flow through you, and let yourself flow with life. The ultimate destination is always the ocean of eternal peace. My dear friend, we have walked through 7 lessons together to untangle the knots of fear in the mind. The journey from anxiety to self-sovereignty is not an overnight task. There will be days when fear comes knocking again, but now you are no longer fighting empty-handed. You now hold the master key, which is to step aside and let life flow. Always remember, peace is not a place without storms, noise, or hardship. Peace is when, right in the midst of those things, our heart remains still like a lake. You don't need to strain yourself to control the entire ocean. You only need to learn to flow with the wave. If today's sharings have touched your heart, bringing you even a little lightness and trust, please help me spread this benevolent energy further. Your like is great encouragement. Sharing this video with family and friends is how you sow seeds of peace in the garden of their lives. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue to hold hands on the path back to balance and awakening in the next videos. And before you leave, please perform a small act with a great power of commitment. Leave a comment below. I choose peace. This is not just a sentence. This is the strongest declaration you send to the universe and to yourself to begin a more free life. Thank you for listening and trusting. May you always be as steady as the mountain, as carefree as the clouds, and as serene as the flowing water. Goodbye, and I hope to see you again.